All right. Now we will dive into the different chapters we have. Okay. And that's for the tips and tricks for each chapter. Okay, we will try to finish some chapters today, and the rest we will finish them in the session 2. So then we can have session 3 and 4 for the practice questions and some time management, practicing also some time management. All right. Now, please focus as much as you can in these tips and tricks because they're really, really important and they will definitely help you succeed in the PMP exam. All right. Okay. Now, I hope you can take some notes. So please take some notes because you will be needing those notes when we'll be practicing those mock questions and mock exams in the third and the fourth session of this coaching program. All right. Now, first of all, I want to start with the general tips and tricks, assuming or presuming that you've already finished the training, okay? Because, usually we had this general tips and tricks section at the end, okay? But I wanted to have it first today because it will help me, with the rest of the chapters. So I just changed the order, all right? Now, remember, in the exam, whenever you're reading a question, you need to look for the keyword in the question text or in one of the answers. Okay. For example, I remember one question. It was about a project, of course, and then in that question, it says, or in the text, it says, okay, in the planning phase, what should the project manager do? For example, so the keyword was about the planning phase, and all the answers given, they were about activities to be done in the execution phase or the initiation phase, and only one answer that contained an action that is done usually in the planning phase. So, but that word planning phase was not so visible, or it wasn't emphasized. Okay. So actually, some people answered wrongly on that question because some other answers, they were really, really, like, I mean, they thought they were really more complete. Yeah, they were complete, but for the execution phase, not for the planning phase. So remember that in almost most of the questions, okay, in the exam, you will always be able to find a keyword, whether in the text or one of the answers, that will let you know that you need really to pick that particular answer. Okay, and we will see some examples. Definitely, I will make sure that we see some examples for any tip and trick. For any tip and trick we will see in these slides, I will make sure that I will bring relevant questions. Okay. Um, in the exam, try to choose specific answer rather than a general answer. Okay. And there was once a question about a new project, and the company, wants to, I think, launch a new project, something like this. And what should the project manager do? And then there was an answer which contained, perform a business case, and then there was an answer which contained perform a SWOT analysis. Now, SWOT. Okay, it was a project about a new technology. Of course, definitely, when we are thinking about deploying a new technology project, then we need to, perform a SWOT analysis. But also, SWOT was more specific than the business case. So that's why we recommend that you choose specific answer rather than general answer. And again, as I said, I'm giving you the tips and tricks, and then we will be seeing, relevant questions. I didn't want to bring the questions now because I needed first to finish the tips and tricks, help you remember them, help you digest them, because this Sunday we will be having the first batch of the tips and tricks. Next Sunday we will have the second batch. It will give you enough time to digest all these tips and tricks. Take your own notes, in your own handwriting, okay, or can type them on your computer, and then you come ready in those practice exam practice sessions. Okay. When a question asks about what should you do first, there can be probably several answers that you might think they're right, but you always need to choose the answer that comes first in the process or in the chronological order. Okay, and we will see several questions about this. Okay, so always when a question asks you what should the project manager do first, so you always need to pick from those answers, in front of you, pick the one that comes first in time. All right. And usually what should the project manager do first? Usually it's an answer that starts with assess, analyze, evaluate, review. Usually these are the kind of answers that you need to pick, when the question asks you what should the project manager do first. Okay, remember this, you will need it later. Okay. Updating the register. You remember in our training, we've seen different registers: stakeholder register, lessons learned register, risk register, etc. Updating the registers or the logs, such as the change log, the action log, the issue log, impediment log, etc., is selected as an answer when the question asks what to do first. Okay. Yeah. So if the question asks what to do first, um, so you can pick this answer. Okay. For example, if the question asks you about particular situation and it asks you what needs to be done first, and there is one of the answers is updating the register or the log, that's fine, because updating the register or the log is part of a process. Because remember, when the question asks you what to do first, okay, it's usually going to test you on the chronological steps in a process. And we will be seeing the change management process, the risk management process, etc. So the question tests you on whether you know the chronological order of the steps. So if there will be one of the answers to update a register or a log, you might need to pick it as an answer if the question asks you what to do first. Okay, so uh, I will just about what to do first. Okay, I'll just highlight this so you know that we're talking about this. All right, this kind of questions, and we have a table. We will see it in a few minutes. However, you do not want to pick the answer that includes updating the register or updating the log if the question is actually looking for an effective solution and the question asks you what to do, not what to do first, but what to do. So in summary, if the question asks you, or it gives you a certain situation and it asks you what to do, then updating the register or the log is not the most effective solution. Okay, actually the question is looking for a more effective solution. But if the question asks you what to do first, and in one of the answers there is updating this register or this log, then you might consider it as the right answer, depending on what kind of other answers you have. Okay, so please pay attention to this, because in several questions in the exam, you have answers with or emphasizing on updating the risk register or the issue log or whatever, and you're sometimes confused. Should I pick it? Is it the right action? Remember, if the question asks you just what to do, then probably this is not the right action. It's more of a passive action, because actually there is better answer which contains a more effective and proactive action. But if it asks you what to do first, you might consider this. You, as a project manager, we said this earlier, you must always apply fully, okay, the right or the complete solution, because in the exam questions, for example, you have a question with 4 possible answers. You apply the elimination techniques, you remove 2 answers, and you're left with 2. Then you might be wondering, like, these 2 answers are good to me. Which one to pick? You always pick the one that is containing or that is the most complete, or containing the most or the right solution. Okay, one of the answers is definitely lacking something. Okay, definitely is lacking something. So you always need to have this mindset that the project manager should pick the answer that contains the most complete solution or the right actions. All right. You need to avoid shortcuts or half solutions. Okay. So for example, um, if you have a situation with a stakeholder, okay, and uh, it's a conflict, and the question asks you what to do in the situation. Don't just say, for example, I send them an email, okay, or for example, I phone them and let them know that they need to do their job. For example, you have a conflict with the provider, okay, and your team is complaining about the provider's performance, and the question asks you what to do, and you eliminate two answers which are totally wrong, and then you're left with two. One of them is, pick the phone and call the provider, tell them please do your job and respect the contract. However, the other question is, organize a meeting with the provider and discuss with them the reasons for their, for example, delays, etc. So now going for the meeting is definitely better, because having picking up the phone and calling them and urging them to respect the contract is sort of an easy solution. But the right solution or the complete solution is to organize a meeting with them, go meet them, and discuss the reasons for the delay and the impact of that delay. Okay, so you in this situation, that's what we mean by the right complete solution, and the other answer is more of a half solution. Actually, just calling them and urging them to respect the contract, that's a half solution. Actually, it's not really an effective solution. Okay. um, Facing the issue is very important. You as a project manager, whenever you find out that there is an issue, you need to face it. Don't avoid issues, okay? And don't delegate the issue. You don't delegate issues to stakeholders or to sponsors. Really, you escalate to the sponsor only if that's the last resort, okay? You as a project manager, PMI expects you to face the issue. You go for the issue, you understand the issue, you analyze it, you find the cause, the root cause of the issue. You prepare a solution with your team and you implement the solution. Okay, that's what PMI expects from you. Okay, that's the right mindset to have in any project's issue. Okay, so please remember this. So please avoid any answers. Sorry, avoid any answers that includes delegating the issue, for example, or not going for the solution. When solving the issue, as I said, here are the steps, the right steps to apply. You need to analyze or assess, of course, with the team. Okay. Okay, so something is missing here. Okay. You need to analyze or assess with the team. Okay. All right. So you need to analyze or assess the issue with the team, find out the root cause, for example. You need to review it. Okay. Or review the project management plan and the related documents. So, is there anything in the project management plan or the sub plans, such as a scope plan, schedule plan, risk plan, etc., and related documents? And then, of course, the last step is take the action. Okay, so analyze or assess first step with the team, review the plan. The second step and third step is take the corrective action or the workaround, or implement a resolution or whatever. Okay. Another very important tip, which is don't bypass any steps or any processes or any documentation. Okay, don't bypass them in any part of the project. If the project management approach that you have selected indicates or states certain set of steps or processes or tools or documentation, just use them. For example, okay, in the definition of done, okay, let's say to consider a user story complete, you need, for example, to conduct, let's say, user acceptance testing, and then prepare certain documentation, and conduct the demonstration. It must be successful, etc. For example, you cannot skip the documentation part. If the process, the definition of done process indicates that you need to complete that documentation, then complete it. Don't bypass it. All right. So don't bypass any steps or any processes or any documentation. Okay. In the exam, and mainly for those almost 170 questions, which have one question with with four choices and one possible answer. Okay, which are almost 170 questions. Usually there are almost four types of scenarios, almost four types. Okay, we call them the very easy question, the moderate question, the hard question. Okay, and the bad question. Okay, and let me guide you through these four types of questions. Of course, we've come up with these scenarios based, on the feedback from the people who took the exam and also from our own observation. Okay, and even when studying the questions in the PMI study hall and other sources of mock exams. All right. Now, usually, uh, most of the questions in the exam are what we call moderate questions. So they're not that easy. They're not that hard. They're moderate. They're also not short, not long, and even the difficulty level is moderate. Okay, this is scenario two, and I would like to start with it. Okay, so usually in the scenario two, you have one question with with four choices. Okay, and usually you can eliminate two answers, okay, using the elimination techniques, which we will see in a while, okay, based, on different words in those answers. You can eliminate them, and we will see later on. Actually, in the tips and tricks version one, we had like 10 words or 10 possible answers that you can eliminate. Now we have almost 17 or 16 because we've added some elimination techniques, okay, in the version 2, which we are using in this coaching program. So usually, um, there is this scenario two of moderate questions. So as we said, you can eliminate almost two answers, and then you are left with two answers. Now, one looks like it's good, but definitely you're looking for the one that is the best. Okay, so by best we mean is the answer with the right keywords, maybe the right solution, the right techniques, and usually it is the most complete. So the good, this answer here is good, but maybe the best is having one more step or one more content, that makes it a full solution. Okay, so that's why in this scenario too, once you eliminate those two bad answers, or at least one bad answer, but usually you can eliminate two of them, then you're left with two answers, and you will pick the one that is the most complete usually. Okay, and that's scenario two. All right. For scenario one, there are, we cannot really indicate whether there are almost 20% of the questions, more or less. So that's just indication, to be honest. All right. We cannot really confirm for sure, whether it's really 20% of the questions in the exam, but, it's just an indication. Now, almost, 20% of the questions, almost, just, that's what we think of the questions in the exam. They're, based on scenario one. We call them a scenario one. PMI didn't call them scenario one or two or three. We made that up. Okay, we came up with that. And in this scenario, it's difficult because you have four possibilities, four choices. One is bad. Usually, you can figure out that one of them is bad because it's an answer that is totally out of the subject. For example, we're discussing an issue among the team members. It's a communication issue, and the answer is about, for example, about creating a stakeholder engagement plan. It's got nothing to do with the communication issue within the team members or between the team members. Okay, so usually it's a bad answer because it's totally out of the subject. But you're left with three answers. And now you might think that, or you think any one of them could be the good answer. So usually there is a good answer, there is a better one, but we are definitely looking for the best. Usually the best answer is the one that comes first in the chronological order, especially if the question asks you what should be done first. So usually this scenario one is for the questions what should be done first, okay, or what should you do first. So usually you eliminate one answer and you're left with three, and you're definitely going to pick the answer that comes first in chronological order. And as we said, it starts with review, analyze, assess, evaluate, especially in the case of an issue, a change, a risk, etc. All right. So usually these, and, a lot of people who went through these scenarios, they told us that it really helped them. It really helped them, answer a lot of questions in the exam, and they really passed successfully and got their certification. There is another scenario which we call scenario three. And these are the very easy questions. They're not too many, okay? Now, again, it depends on your luck, on the exam day. But let's say, there are not too many. The question has got four choices, and from the moment you read them, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Okay, I'm left with this. This is a good one. Okay, and that's pretty easy questions. Usually these questions are about the role on the project. The who is doing what. For example, it's a question about prioritizing the items in the project backlog. Okay, and then it gives you the possible answers. Like, for example, what should the project manager do? And one answer is ask the team to prioritize the items. Is wrong, because the teams don't prioritize items in the product backlog. Another answer, which is involve the sponsor. Definitely that's wrong. We don't involve the sponsor. And another answer is, for example, the project manager should organize or prioritize the items by themselves, which is wrong again, because it's only the product owner that should prioritize the items in the product backlog. So definitely the first answer is bad. Then the other one is bad. The other one is bad. Then the one you're left with is definitely the product owner is the one prioritizing the items in the product backlog. So that's what we call a very easy scenario, or a scenario of a very easy question. All right. But they're not too many. Depending on your luck, really, they can be 10%, they can be 20%. Again, depending on your luck in the project. To be honest, there is no algorithm behind it. It's just your luck. Definitely, absolutely your luck. It's not about how many years of experience did you put in your PMP application, or in which industry do you work, or in which country you're from. Definitely, it's just about luck. And there is this fourth scenario, which we call them the bad questions. The bad questions scenario. Some questions in the PMP exam, uh, they kind of all the answers are bad. This one is bad, this one is bad, this one is bad. So what you need to do is you need to pick the best one among the worst one, the bad ones. So all of the answers are kind of bad. They don't fit, but you need to pick the least one in being bad. Or the best one among all those bad ones. All right. Luckily, there are not so many questions in this scenario, but it exists. Okay, it exists. So sometimes you read a question, you don't like any of the answers. Really, you don't like any of them, but you still need to pick one of them. So definitely, you will pick the one that is, the best one among those bad answers. Okay, so that's scenario four. And it's not that often. Definitely it's not that often. So these are the four scenarios. Really keep them in mind. They will really help you answer all the questions, at least those 170 questions that, as we called earlier, with one question with four choices and one possible answer, right? So almost all of them, those 170 questions, will fall in one of these four scenarios. And as I said, we came up with these scenarios based on our observation. Yeah, if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section, on either on our YouTube channel once we upload this video, or send them directly to me. All right. Now, if we want to deep dive in also these kind of this form of questions in the exam. Now we've created for you a table here. Now we will see what the question asks, and what are usually the steps to be taken, which means what kind of answer you need to pick. Now, if the question asks you what to do, okay, then you need definitely to take the appropriate course of action according to the subject, to the process, to the phase, to the tool, to the role in question. If the question asks you what to do first or what to do next, then usually you go ahead with answers such as reviewing a document or review the plan. For example, analyze the situation. These are the kind of answers you pick. Determine the impact, find out the root cause, go for a face-to-face meeting, communication with the team or stakeholders. So usually these are the answers that you pick when the question asks you what to do first or what to do next. Okay. If the question asks you what should the project manager have done, what should have done. Okay, what should the project manager have done, for example, to avoid the situation. Then here we're talking about a reaction or reactive action. Okay, so the question is asking you what steps could have been taken to avoid what happened, to prevent it from happening, or what could have been implemented to avoid the issue. Okay, so that's what this kind of question means. Or if the question asks you what the project manager should not do or shouldn't have done, so here you need to select the action that has the worst impact or that is in the least effective. Okay, these are the kind of questions and the possible answers. And in the session 3 and 4 of this coaching program, we will be looking at different questions with different or with the questions in these different scenarios. Okay, remember that PMI recommends that you always act, I mean, generally in a project, after you have a complete and accurate data. So that's why when you're picking an answer for any question in the exam, you need to pick the answer that indicates that you have a complete or accurate data. PMI wants you to avoid making hasty decisions in a project without thorough analysis, and again, never delegate tasks. So never pick answers that contain task delegation. Also, don't make decisions if you don't have thorough analysis. That's why when you have a question, if you have an answer that indicates, making an analysis, such as, for example, what to do first or next, then you definitely need to pick the answer of analyzing a situation. Okay, because PMI really wants you to have this mindset of making analysis before taking any decisions. Okay, so here this page will help you really answer a lot of questions in the exam, because a lot of questions are about do first, do next, should have done, shouldn't do, shouldn't have done. Okay, so these are most of the types of questions that are asked, and here what is the best step to take, and we will explain to you more in the 3rd and 4th session with the practice mock questions. Okay, all right. Now, a very important slide, all right, that contains a lot of tips. Still, we are in the general tips and tricks, okay, still in the general ones. And these tips and tricks will help you answer correctly a lot of questions in the exam. Now, for example, if the question is about a disagreement with a stakeholder, all right, so here definitely what you need to do, for example, if you have a disagreement with a stakeholder about the results, the deliverables, the product, the stakeholder is complaining that it's not what they had in mind or what was agreed, then definitely you need to take actions that indicate that, or what you need to do is analyze the gap. So pick the answer that indicates that you would perform a gap analysis to understand, the gap between what they requested, the stakeholder, what they've requested, and what the team has delivered, and also pick an answer that includes comparing with the acceptance criteria. So AC is the acceptance criteria. Okay, let me write it down fully here for you. Okay, with the acceptance yeah, criteria. Okay, all right. So you'll see a lot of abbreviation in this presentation, because actually we've assumed that you've already had a training. So in case of a disagreement with the stakeholder, you need first to go for one of these actions that include analyzing the gap or comparing with the acceptance criteria. Now, if we find out that actually we did the right work, we did the right job, we are right, then the next course of action is to meet with the stakeholder to convince them, and proving to them that we did the right action. So if they're convinced, that's okay, then the problem is solved. If they're not convinced, then here, in this case, you might consider escalating to the sponsor or to the steering committee, because they have higher authority and they can handle it themselves with the stakeholder. Okay? All right. But if we are wrong, then here we need to admit to the stakeholder that we're wrong. We will take corrective action. This corrective action might implicate or might need, raising a change request. And then we need to inform the stakeholder that we've taken the corrective action. So these bullet points here, they will help you, answer a lot of questions in the exam, because a lot of questions actually are about disagreements, about deliverables with the stakeholders. Really, we're talking about a lot of questions, really. I mean, maybe 10, 15, 20 questions. I don't know, but really a lot of questions, are around this subject. Okay. Um, Another tip, which is never change or don't change the project management approach just because the team doesn't know it. So, for example, if the team is used to working in the predictive environment for years and years, and then the company decided to use agile approach, adaptive project management, or you decide to use adaptive project management for your project, but the team, is worried because they've never used adaptive before. So, they're kind of reluctant to use it. Don't back off. Don't change your mind. Actually, just provide training, coaching, help the team understand agile and adaptive, but don't change the project management approach just because the team doesn't know it. Right? We recommend that in the exam you avoid picking answers that contain strict words such as must or only. So usually answers with terms such as must or only, they're not the right answers, okay? Because PMI doesn't appreciate imposing, all right? Also avoid answers that include deny customer request. So, we don't deny customer requests. Usually we pay attention to customer requests and we give them priority. So if there is any answer that, indicates deny customer requests, so try to avoid it. Also avoid answers that, includes implementing a change without approval. Okay, so we don't really implement changes without, getting the approval. Actually, this was a question that I had with one of the PMP training groups just this week, and there was a question, with some troubles on the project. They were big troubles that required a change of the plan. So one answer, no, there were two wrong answers, and then we were left with two. One answer was to bring this to the awareness of the sponsor and stakeholders, and the other answer was implement and change, updating the plan, or but the right answer was to bring this to the attention to the sponsor and stakeholders so they can, you can discuss it and they can approve the change, because we cannot just go ahead and implement the change without the approval, right? Remember that escalation to the sponsor or to the steering board is really the last resort, okay? So you don't escalate unless you have no other solution. And once you escalate, there is nothing more you can do, okay? So let me add this for you, because actually, so after escalation, PM, nothing more to do for you, okay? So after escalation, nothing more to do for you. Actually, you end right there, because you've escalated to the steering board or steering committee or sponsor, and they will come back to you with whatever they've decided or whatever they've done. So after escalation, actually, nothing more to do, all right? So just remember this, okay? When answering questions, you need to rely on the information of the question and don't make assumptions. Now, very important. Let me put that in red for you, actually. Don't make assumptions. Okay, you don't need to make a, don't assume actually they mean this, they mean that. No, just rely on the information and the question. Whatever is written in the question, you know live with it. Just consider that. Don't assume. So please don't make assumptions. All right. You can find the keyword or the key expression within the question, or sometimes in one of the answers. I think I've mentioned that. Where did I mention that? Yeah. Uh, okay. You know what? I'm removing it from here uh, because actually we have it here. So it's actually double mentioned. So you can find the keyword or the key expression within the question, or sometimes in one of the answers. All right, good. Now we come to the this slide. I call it the savior. Okay, this slide has saved a lot of people in the exam, and not just save them time, but also save them, from failing the exam. Really, this slide I call the savior. Okay, because it contains a lot of elimination techniques. Actually, we've just mentioned elimination techniques, okay, or answers to avoid. We mentioned that in this slide 26, but here in the slide 27, okay, we will have more elimination techniques, or we call them the automatic elimination. Okay, all right. So now we mentioned that some questions can be answered only by elimination techniques. See scenario 4. We mentioned already scenario 4, so I don't need actually to keep this. So I'm actually removing this. All right. All right. Now let's look at some of the automatic elimination. So if you have answers, okay, you know what? Let me just move this up. Yeah, good. So actually we call these the automatic elimination. So if you have answers with these, or if there are answers with these expressions, just eliminate them immediately. Okay, they can save you time. Okay, and then they can help you, answer correctly on the question. Now, if you have an answer that says do nothing, don't continue reading it, just move to the next answer. So we never choose answers that emphasizes on or indicates elaborates on doing nothing. Okay, so we never choose an answer that says do nothing or close the project with outstanding points. Okay, so you never actually, these are two elimination techniques. If it says do nothing, you don't choose that answer. If it says close the project with outstanding points, you don't choose that answer. Okay. Also, we don't choose answers that starts with ignore, or it says, for example, it says this is a low priority stakeholder. You can ignore the request. No, even with a low power and a low interest stakeholder, you never ignore them. So you never choose an answer that states ignore. Okay. Also, we never ever choose answers that implicate firing a team member, replacing a team member, releasing a team member, or ending the contract of a team member. Okay, let me also add it here because we've seen it in some questions. Ending the contract of team member or of a vendor. Ending the contract. Yeah, well, actually, vendor. Okay. Okay. Yeah, try to avoid those answers. Okay. Okay. Ending the contract. We really try to avoid them. Okay. Also, try to avoid any answer that indicates asking the team to work overtime, okay, or extra hours. So in the PMI's mindset, we never ask the team to work overtime or extra hours. Also, avoid answers that implicate escalating, okay? But here I put an asterisk. So, like, you gotta be careful with that because maybe if, from the answer, from the question, you understand that is the last resort. So you might be obliged to escalate. So I just put an asterisk here because, just, exceptions apply, but usually we avoid any answers that indicate escalation, such as, for example, talking to the functional manager, or actually, going to the functional manager to discuss the issue, or informing the steering committee or the sponsor. Usually try to avoid that because that's sort of escalation. Also, avoid answers in which you try to persuade a higher authority. For example, try to persuade a sponsor or a PMO or a steering committee of a certain solution. For example, I remember in one of the questions, the sponsor said that they're running out of money and they want you to close the project. So in one of the answers was written, you try to convince them to keep the project open and you perform a cost benefit analysis. Actually, yeah, it's nice to perform a cost benefit analysis, but you don't persuade the sponsor of not closing the project because actually the sponsor is a higher authority. So you just, implement whatever they asked for because they are a higher authority. Okay, so you need to respect what they asked for, and you need to do it the way they asked for it. Okay, and also you avoid any any answers in which you enforce the closing of the project. Okay, so you don't enforce the closing of the project. For example, you want to close the project, but the customer is refusing to sign off on the deliverables. So you go ahead and you tell them no, or you try to or for example, one of the answers says you proceed with project closure anyway. So that's a wrong answer. You don't proceed with the project closure anyway if the customer is not agreeing. So actually, you don't enforce closing the project. Also, you don't pick any answers which indicates a passive action, which we mentioned earlier. For example, record the information in the register instead of taking effective action or effective solution. So that's called a passive action. It's as if you just want to prove that you've registered that issue or that risk, but actually there is a more effective solution to do, because the question is not asking you what to do first. Okay, if it was asking you what to do first, you might consider picking the answer of recording the information in the respective register or log. But if the question is asking you what to do, then you need to be looking for a more effective solution. Okay, also avoid or eliminate answers that indicate half a solution or a shortcut, such as hiring an external, asking the sponsor to handle the issue. Now that's a shortcut or an easy solution. Or for example, avoid half solutions and pick the answers actually that have the complete solution, as we mentioned earlier. Also avoid or eliminate any answers that indicate delegating a solution, or I'll also eliminate most of the time eliminate any answers that indicate picking a solution with cost increase, a solution that will lead to a cost increase, such as asking for more funds, for example. Okay, adding extra resources. You want to avoid that. PMI doesn't want you to, pick any answers or any solutions that lead to cost increase. Also, you need to avoid extreme measures. Okay. Now, there are extreme measures that you need to avoid, such as terminated contracts. We don't want to terminate any contracts with vendors or team members or contractors. Okay. Really avoid that. Withholding payments. Now, we haven't seen that many questions about withholding payments, but there are some questions about refusing to pay a debt or a contract. No, you don't withhold any payments. You make sure that you pay all your contracts. Also avoid answers that include extreme measures, such as recruiting during the ongoing projects. We don't want to recruit additional resources while the project is ongoing, or bringing in consultants, really, because consultants, these are external resources and they will cost us money, or shutting down the project due to minor setbacks. Okay, due to minor, so if you have a minor setback, a minor issue, for example, that doesn't necessarily require shutting down the project. You don't need to shut down the project just because of a minor setback. For example, we were not able to complete a sprint on time, not on time. Okay, we were not able to complete all the story points in a sprint. Okay, it's got an impact, but that's not reason to shut down the project. So avoid shutting down a project due to a minor setback. Okay, so please, this page, I think, really, this page and the previous one, with all these avoid, or automatic elimination, I think really they contain, I think, probably 90% or more of all the possible scenarios, um, and the possible answers to eliminate, really. And if you just memorize and understand and memorize all these avoid and eliminate answers, then you're fine. I think you'll do very fine on the exam, really, and you can succeed in the exam, right? Good. Now we've just finished the tips and tricks for this first chapter, which were general tips and tricks. Okay, so we put them in a separate video here.